Unlike many other mainstream survival shows, this show is supposed to create a permanent group with trainees from a singular pool. Only Wake 1. The show establishes early on that the trainees have an unequal amount of training experience. However, they are expected to complete the same missions to the same standard. Of course, you can have some naturally skilled people who come in and sweep the competition with little to no effort, but when you, as a company and producer, know that the playing field is uneven, it makes no sense to invite disadvantaged trainees to compete except to fill space. Of course, having a vocalist go up against a dancer in dancing or vice versa isn't really a fair comparison either, which is why the two tend to focus on their main skill sets. However, what if IWALY 2 took the chance to separate itself from not just other survival shows but the original IWALY as well by giving us a glimpse into what it actually takes to become an idol? K-pop documentaries will always have an audience, and especially globally, as fans want to know more about the behind-the-scenes formation of their favorite groups. If IWALY 2 were to take the opportunity to turn the original entrance examination into more of an evaluation, the way Produce kind of did, and organize the girls by their skill sets, I think it could have really stood out as something worth watching. Take as an example, if Ju-won were to be evaluated, her dance score would be really high, but her vocal score probably closer to above average. Maybe some people will disagree, but when the goal is to make a permanent group, then I just don't think the qualifications for the members are the same as a project/temporary group. With project groups, you want to maximize both skill and popularity. Not everyone needs to be a perfect all-rounder, but you want a dancer who can carry a tune, a singer who can keep up with choreo, and trainees who are popular and at least above average at one or more skills. Take IWALY. When we look back at them, who stands out? Somi, the center who became a soloist, clearly showed well-developed vocal, dance, and performance skills. Sejong, the vocalist who became an actress and soloist, well-rounded at every skill. Yeonjung, the main vocalist who became a main vocalist among 12 other members. Chungha, the main dancer lead vocalist who took Korea by storm as a soloist in 2019. These are the members of IWALY who really stick out for good reasons. Then, of course, there's Doyeon and Chaeyeon, who were the visuals of the group, but they were not known for their lacking skills. That was Sohye, who has now become an actress and completely fallen out of the cultural zeitgeist. Similarly with IZ*ONE, we have Sakura and Haewon. Neither were known for their skill set, nor is either of them known today for having particularly outstanding skills. But they were in a large group, so you didn't really notice it because they had so many more members to hold down the fort for more challenging roles. Now that Sakura is in a much smaller, permanent group, her lacking skills are more apparent and more targeted than ever. Popularity simply can't sustain you forever. At some point, as a permanent group, your skills are going to catch up with you. I'm not in any way condoning the current hate train Sakura has been receiving. I am merely using her as an example to further illustrate my point. What is that point, you may ask? I am so glad you did. See, I think IWALY 2 should have started with a boot camp. We see them all the time in Western shows. It wouldn't need to be a lot, but I want to see if dedicated training can help these girls grow their skills. Even someone who started at a high standard like Jungin and Gyuri still shows a lot of room for improvement. The question is more if they will, but this would benefit the contestants with a lower starting value far more. Let's look at Chaeyeon. A lot of people questioned why I was rooting for her as one of my original top 7, and simply put, I just think she had a lot of potential for improvement and would offer something to the group post-debut in terms of personality and background. I wanted to see her earn a spot in the group, but the format of the show completely prevented that from happening. They didn't get any dedicated training times, the producers barely spent any time with them, and when they did, it was hyper-focused on each performance. They were given band-aids instead of actual technique to develop. Because I want to bring it up, I will. Jaehwan's advice helping Ji-yoon reach the high note is a good starting point, but it just gave her a shortcut without the advice she needed to become a better vocalist. I've taken vocal lessons where the teacher had us do just that to get a sense for how to support and project high notes, but it didn't just stop at having us shout. She actually helped us analyze which muscles were engaged, if there was any tension, and in short, she helped us develop our technique using the shouting as a starting point. Ji-yoon was given a starting point with no guidance on how to get to the finish line. Similarly with the advice Monica and Lee Jung gave, it was always just short-term fixes on a per-mission basis. Compare that to the Produce series where the mentors actually took the time to identify each trainee's problems and work through them, although again very mission-centered, it still helped them build techniques and skills they could take with them further. Using Sakura again, if you look at comments from the AKB ceremony held during Produce 48, you'll see a lot of praise for how much her vocals improved during Produce as compared to before. Unlike my attempt to fix Universe Ticket, I won't go through the entire show then change it, because I think the show did do a much better job than Universe Ticket in a lot of ways, but it could still be much better. So I will keep the things I like and add in new elements and remove ones I disliked as we go. But first, a quick disclaimer. This video is not a criticism of the final IWALY lineup, it's not even going to be how I wish things would have gone. When I make these videos, I put a lot of consideration into how even the smallest changes could affect the final outcome. At the end of the day, this is pure speculation and you are allowed to disagree with it, but this isn't done with any malice in mind. So again, my first suggestion would be to adjust the entrance test into a skill assessment and they get placed into boot camps from there. So let's look at each of the girls' entrance tests and how they could better reflect their skills. But before that, I want to say that I really truly do still believe the goal was never to make a group with a big rap focus, and that's why we only really got one entrance test with a rap focus, and they put all the main rapper candidates in there. We want the standard level for all of them to be at least 8.5, with anything over a 9.0 being considered debut ready. We start with Unforgiven, which consists of Yoo Sarang, Son Joo-won, Kim Min-sol, and Ji-won. Honestly, one of the more balanced performances of the show, not just the entrance test. However, I still don't think this was the correct song for them. I get what Emma was going for. They picked a bunch of songs that are popular right now to hopefully grab some attention. That doesn't make them skill showcases. But for the sake of simplicity, let's keep all the songs as they were for now and just focus on ranking the girls in each category. For vocals, Sarang showcased stability, which is one of the most important factors. She was able to pull off low notes, which were clearly out of her comfortable range, and showed an understanding of how to use her voice. As a dancer, Sarang has very few faults. Her choreo, to me, seemed clean and well executed with nice stance lines. Her stage presence is good, but could still be improved. Vocally, she shows potential. Her voice seemed a bit unstable at times and somewhat unsupported despite being in a comfortable range, but she pulled off the song with no voice cracks or egregious mistakes. As a dancer, there are also few faults to find with her. Clean dance lines, good execution, good understanding of her moves as well. In stage presence, she manages to stand out without overwhelming the stage, but somehow slips into the background the further away she gets from a spotlight part. Another person who shows a lot of vocal potential. Her voice was among the strongest in the team with no faltering. Just a little bit of refinement is needed for her to become a really good vocalist. No faults with the dance that I could see, but definitely comes off as less refined than Sarang and Joo-won. Her stage presence could use some work. I struggled to keep track of her even during some of her solo parts. Vocally, Ji-won was not really impressing me until she pulled off the backwards bend with little to no effect on her voice. She shows a lot of potential to become a strong vocalist if she improves her support and projection. Her dance also had few faults, but again, definitely less refined than Ji-won and Sarang. Stage presence was definitely felt, but something is still holding her back. Due to her age, she shows the most potential for improvement in the team. The second performance of the season was After Like with Kim Gyuri, Fuko, Park Yin, Kim Chaeun, and Kang Ji-won. I think that this was unofficially the visual team. You have Yeon and Chaeun, who were widely acknowledged as being the contestants with the visuals closest to the beauty standard, as well as Kang Ji-won, Gyuri, and Fuko, who were all acknowledged for their soft, doll-like visuals. Which is why it's not surprising that they were given a very elegant song. Gyuri was definitely a standout in this performance, and it's a shame most people forgot about her until part 2. She definitely shows room for improvement as both a vocalist and dancer, but she also showcased herself to be debut ready. I saw some criticism about her nasality in later performances, but that wasn't present in this one, so she's clearly capable of performing without nasality issues. Despite having probably the highest expectations of the team, Fuko manages to live up to them, presenting a performance reflective of her long training period. Or, well, relatively long compared to most of the contestants. She falters only a little bit in her vocals, but not in any egregious way. Her dance and stage presence definitely stand out, and I mentioned in my original review how she showed a great sense for the cameras. Definitely not the strongest vocalist, but she did show off her good dance foundation. Her dance lines are clean and her moves are very graceful, owing to her ballet background. She shows a lot of potential for growth as a vocalist and an idol dancer. She just needs the chance to learn the basics. Yeon was perhaps one of the more underwhelming performers. Despite making a similar mistake as Chaeun in the formation, hers was much more obvious. Her dance lines aren't as clean and her vocals are similarly weak. She had her moments where I thought maybe we had been too harsh on her in part 1, so she can become better if, like Chaeun, given a chance to learn the basics. Ji-won was perhaps the least remarkable member of the team. She didn't make any egregious mistakes, but she didn't display noteworthy skill either. This means she's easily forgotten in the team. Her vocals were weak, but she didn't make a big vocal mistake. Her dancing was also weak, but she didn't make any huge mistakes there either. She shows potential, but in this performance she wasn't memorable at all. In Sweet Venom we meet Kim Soo-jung, Jung Se-bi, Oh Yoona, and Ling Ling. This is a performance that I personally think gets both overhyped and overly criticized. Perhaps my most controversial opinion with regards to this one is that I think Se-bi gets too much credit and Ling Ling gets too little. Now, Soo-jung is a great dancer and that can't be taken away from her, but her falsetto register is very, very, very underdeveloped, and unfortunately that was a good majority of what she showcased on stage. That does drag her score here down quite a bit. Se-bi is a lot of people's favorite in the stage, and I can't blame you if you're one of them. She showed a good sense for stage presence early on, but to me that just doesn't make up for her skill level. She shows a lot of potential as a vocalist, being the only member who didn't go into falsetto, meaning she was also the only one whose vocals seemed consistent. But behind that was a very clearly underdeveloped vocal technique, which left her throaty and pulling up too much weight. But she shows a lot of potential to become a good vocalist. Yoona was perhaps the song choice's biggest victim. She had a pretty rough voice crack, which unfortunately immediately drags down her score, which wasn't too high to begin with due to her breath support being so lacking. But she did manage to show off her main skill set, which is her dancing. Definitely a lot of room for improvement here. Now, I am not saying her vocals were great, far from it, but they were definitely not nearly as bad as people made them out to be. I feel like I was one of very few people who wasn't actually surprised at how well she did in the island missions, because I saw and heard here what she could become. She was very nice in the lower registers, her dancing wasn't bad at all, but her downfall came from weak falsettos that Mnet over-focused on in the episode itself, to the point her only screen time that episode was those weak points, and her good vocal moments were fully edited out. Past the midway point, we're introduced to the girls in Team Cake, those being Yuiko, Kim Eunche, Chaesol, and Nana. I was actually really excited for this team, despite not being a huge fan of the song, because ITZY songs are difficult to perform. This team was thus a huge disappointment, but again, I think that's more because the song is inherently difficult. ITZY notoriously have songs that generally go too high for even their own members, along with very difficult detail-oriented choreo. This was the wrong team for the song and the wrong song for the team, but we must evaluate them anyways. Honestly, this team would have probably devoured Stacey's ASAP. Similar concept, but much more forgiving. Honestly, probably the most stable one out of the whole team vocally. No voice cracks, very little faltering in her voice, but she really lacked emotions. I didn't feel her vocally or on stage. From what I could see, her dancing was also fine with no mistakes that I noticed, but lacking in stage presence. Not debut ready, but with more training could become a really strong performer. Can't wait till she started off so strong, but it's very clear she has some issues with regulating her breathing, causing her to start slipping by the midway point of the song. If it wasn't for that, she could have easily made it to the low 8s in vocals. Again, didn't notice anything egregious with the dancing, but it seemed her confidence and stage presence started slipping with her vocals. Definitely the strongest performer on this stage. We still have a lot of room for improvement, but her baseline shows that she can become a strong dancer, singer, and overall performer, even showcasing a bit of rap foundation as well. Definitely gave me Yoona vibes here and stood out in a good way. I don't want to pile onto the dismissive hate she got, but we can all see this wasn't a very strong performance from her. She had the most instability in vocals, stage presence, and from what I could see, dancing as well. Her being good on another show doesn't negate people being disappointed in her for this performance. Remember that. Baggy Jeans is again very far from being my favorite song, and there was definitely a song that would have showcased these girls better. It is ridiculous that this performance turned out to contain some of the strongest performers on the show, but this did nothing to showcase that. Honestly, justice for Yui, Coco, and Yuju. The song is both too low and doesn't even showcase their dancing, singing, nor rapping skills. Just a waste of time. Especially because I have to rank them based on this performance and not what they showed later.
지금 뭐시든 해낼 것 같은 기분이야. Lose it or spend it, yeah.
She does really well right off the bat. Vocals seem good, dancing is good, stage presence is great. As the rap number one, I was expecting more from her in that department, but she did showcase a good foundation. However, her lack of vocal training became very obvious in the bridge. I would have been tricked into an 8.3 had it not been for that part. Looking back at her here, I get why she went under the radar for so long. She shows the potential we saw realized in part 2 with a good dance foundation, but her stage presence was really weak, vocals clearly underdeveloped but with a good rap foundation. This wasn't a good performance for her, but that doesn't make her a bad performer. As the person I was expecting the most from in this stage, it's upsetting that I can't properly evaluate her. We don't get to hear her most vocally challenging part, and that, in my opinion, would have been the deciding factor for her. She shows a good rap and dance foundation and had the second best stage presence in my opinion. A very charming performer, but we don't have the full story on her yet. The final performers of the night, Team Drama, the most anticipated, including the number one vocalist, number one trainee, Jimin, and all contestants in the self-evaluated top 12. My being the number one visual doesn't really affect the anticipation for the performance. Anyways, because it was so hyped up, I feel like my standards were much higher and I may have judged too harshly in my initial evaluation, so let's see if that changed. Perhaps my initial evaluation of her in this stage was too high, but I don't think I can be blamed for that given she almost debuted months earlier, and even less at the time of filming. She showed a good foundation in everything, but her vocals were the most disappointing. She clearly struggles with breath regulation, causing her to take very awkward breaths because she released too much air, which also reduced stability in her vocals. But definitely something that can be worked on. Aside from that, it's the nasality issues, but again, not beyond saving. We can work with this. Her stage presence was definitely her strongest quality here, but as with so many others, as one part of her performance started slipping, so did her stage presence. We can all acknowledge that she had the weakest foundation out of everyone on this stage. While she initially sounds alright, her voice is very unstable and she closes off her airways while singing, causing nasality, but much more severely than anyone else on stage. Her dancing is good, stage presence is strong, but both get overshadowed by her lacking vocal skills to me. Jiyoon's biggest strength is her vocals, and that very much came through despite this not being a good song for her to showcase them. Her stage presence was overshadowed by the others and her dancing could just barely keep up, but she delivered in the vocal department. Had she not attempted a high note out of her range and thus strained a little bit, I think this would have been a very strong performance overall. In my opinion, her voice was the most open with the least amount of nasality and throatiness, showing a strong foundation in vocals that to me immediately signaled that she would be someone to pay attention to, even if nobody else seemed to notice her at the time.
It's time to go. 왜 없어 남았어 난 깨버렸지.
I know there are going to be some very loud people disagreeing, so let me preface by saying, I think Jungin did really well in all departments and showcased the most rounded skill set of possibly the entire contestant pool. She just wasn't the best at any skill. Her vocals were good, but very throaty. She seemed to engage her throat muscles more than her stomach, causing the sounds to come off as very closed off. Had she not been in a performance with Jiyoon, it wouldn't have been as obvious. Her dancing, for all accounts, does not deserve a lot of criticism, but it seems to me that this isn't necessarily a style of dancing that she excels in. Her stage presence could have easily bumped her score overall if again she wasn't in a performance with Mai and Jimin, who showcased much better awareness of the stage and came off much more naturally, which is what stage presence boils down to. This performance showcased how strong Jungin's foundation is, but also highlighted where she can improve solely through who she performed with. And that's episode 1 done. Now, okay. Expecting a survival show with over 50 trainees from all different companies and backgrounds to cater to every single one's skills just isn't realistic. The extent of the producer's knowledge of them is probably limited to their show audition and callback, but that isn't the case with Island. All of these girls had some experience training under Wake 1 in order to get their initial evaluations and get on the show in the first place. I think the one exception is like Jimin, but even then you have months of another survival show for her. My point is, creating challenges and using songs to showcase the trainees you have and the group you want shouldn't be a difficult task in this case. That is why, after evaluating them, we're going to spend the rest of episode 1 splitting them into levels. For this, I think it would be best to have them in 4 levels, but because the standard for this show is higher than average, only 3 contestants have an average score in rank D. They will thus be combined with C- contestants, while C and C+ take up the second level. And the Bs make up our first top 12 in the first level. I think the way I would reveal it is by giving the teams their average score rank, which is either B or C, and then which levels are in the group. Not how many are in each, but if there is at least one contestant in the level, it shows up before the scores are revealed. In order, Unforgiven has a rank of B on average, and all 4 contestants have an average rank of B. Afterlike has a C rank with 2 Bs, 2 Cs, and a D. Sweet Venom also has an average C rank with 2 Bs, 1 C, and 1 D. In Cake is another C average with 1 B, 2 Cs, and a D. Baggy Jeans nets a C average with 1 B and 2 Cs. And finally, Drama is an average score of B with 2 Bs and 2 Cs. I think doing this would cause a lot of shock for the contestants, as they would probably expect certain grades, especially for Unforgiven and Drama. I think they would expect to see an A. After all the performances comes the average score reveal per contestant. This would also rank them 1st to 24th, but not reveal their scores in each category, just their letter grade. Yoosarang B+, Kim Gyuri B+, Choi Jongin B+, Fuko B+, Son Ju-won B, Ji-won B, Kim Min-sol B, Kim Soo-jung B, Chae-sol B-, Jong Se-bi B-, Yoon Ji-yoon B-, Yui B-, Nam Yoo-ju C+, Bang Ji-min C+, Mai C+, Ling Ling C, Coco C, Yuiko C, Park Yeon C-, Kim Eun-chae C-, Kim Chae-yeon C-, Kang Ji-won D+, Oh Yoona D+, Nana D+. The next day, they wake up to find a schedule posted in the common area / cafeteria detailing their training schedule. The first hour of their day is a physical training class to build their stamina because, as we saw around the middle of part 2, they really need it. This is inspired by Idol School and that video of SHINee running while singing Love Like Oxygen. After that, they'll split into target classes. C and below dancers get a 3-hour dance class for dancing, while B and above dancers get 1.5 hours and then free time to practice what they want. Then they break for lunch, and after that, C and below singers get a 3-hour class, while the B and above vocalists get 1.5, then free time. As an example, this means that Soo-jung gets an easier morning and a more intensive afternoon, while Ji-yoon gets the opposite. This would be handled by professional dance and vocal coaches, not the producers. The next day is the same, but on day 3 they'll do a status test. We'll have seen them practicing their fundamentals with the same choreo and song over the last 2 days, and I would personally make that the signal song. This status test will not affect their official rankings, but will allow the main producers to assess them before the final test. It will also be just the pre-chorus and chorus and not the full performance. After lunch, there will be a new posting greeting them in the practice room, splitting them into the comeback test. This is the first test I'm adding to the show and will consist of first comeback songs from current top girl groups. So we have ITZY's Icy, The Seraphim's Anti-Fragile, IVE's Love Dive, aespa's Next Level,
I'm on the next level. 저 너머의 문을 열어 next level.
IDOL's Han,
널 잊으리라.
and Blackpink's Playing with Fire.
우리 사랑은 불타는.
The producers will have chosen the teams for each song. There are definitely a lot more songs I could have chosen from, but I chose these because I think they fit the vibe of the competition and possibly the final group while highlighting the strengths of the individual contestants. In IC, we have Kim Min-sol, Kang Ji-won, Chae-sol, and Oh Yoona. I will refer to their team as Magnes because they have 3 of the youngest contestants. In Anti-Fragile is Kim Chae-yeon, Kim Soo-jung, Mai, and Kim Eun-chae. I'm going to pretend their team name is Kim Mai. For Love Dive, we have Chae Jong-un, Kim Gyuri, Ling Ling, and Yuiko, calling them Vibes. Next Level is then made up of Ji-won, Park Yeon, Coco, and Yoosarang. I'll call them Evo. In Han, we have Fuko, Jong Se-bi, Nam Yoo-ju, and Nana. We will call them Honey. Finally, in Playing with Fire are Son Ju-won, Yoon Ji-yoon, Yui, and Bang Ji-min. I think the show would call them Avengers, but they would be burning up. I do have an idea in mind for how these performances would go, but for now we're going to see them start practicing these songs for a week, with each team getting a private slot with their vocal and dance coaches on day 3, interim check on day 4, and then they're officially brought to ILAND for their comeback test to determine who gets into ILAND and who doesn't on day 7. I don't think much would change with regards to who makes it into ILAND initially. I do think it's likely Yuju would immediately pass this time. I think we'll have our first Islanders, those being Jongin, Jiyoon, Sujong, Fook, Okyuri, Yui, Sebi, Jimin, Juwon, Sarang, Mai, Koko, So, Minsol, Inche, and Yuiko, as well as Yuju and Jiwon adding to the overflow. For simplicity's sake, we'll just say Sol, Minsol, Inche, Yuiko, Yuju, and Jiwon get sent to ground. Easiest to keep track of them. Now, we'll just assume the signal song test goes the same way it did in the show, drama and all. But I started thinking, a lot of people don't like Final Love Song as a signal song, and I get it. It just feels like a relic, and for a lot of people, the sample is too hard to ignore. But if we look at signal songs past, they're a little too bright and upbeat for the vibe of this show. I think Final Love Song does set the tone pretty well, but even I can't get past how outdated it feels. So I spent some time thinking about what made these signal songs so good, and this is coming from someone whose unpopular opinion is that the original Pick Me is the best signal song by a mile. Most iconic signal songs have an EDM drop in common. Whether it's because that was just the vibe of the time or not can be debated, but it is a commonality that can't be ignored. While there are plenty of songs out there that could pass for a produce signal song, that's largely because most of them are bright and upbeat. But Final Love Song and Island as a whole isn't bright. It's intense and it's on the darker side. And then lyrical content also matters. All of the other signal songs carry a message to either the viewers or contestants. Produce songs all ask the viewer to pick me in various ways. OOO is about how the contestants are all following the same dream from different backgrounds. I don't know what's going on in the Boys Planet one, but it follows the same structure. Final Love Song doesn't really have that. Like the title implies, it's more of a breakup song, which is just a weird start to a survival show. After a lot of thought and consideration, I realized something along the lines of Girls' Generation's Catch Me If You Can would fit pretty much all the markers while being similar enough to Final Love Song in structure.
Catch me if you can.
We have the extended intro for an immediate impact, low-range first verse, intense vocals in the pre-chorus, key phrase starting the chorus, dropping throughout the chorus, giving it a very YG feel, slightly more upbeat second verse, intense vocal bridge with a high note, explosive final chorus, and some kind of synthy horn carrying the instrumentals. All the markers. But the edge Catch Me If You Can has on Final Love Song is that the lyrics are a little more survival showy in nature. They can be much more easily interpreted as being about leaving behind the old to chase your dreams, even if some of the lyrics make you question if it's a breakup song or not. But if we follow the structure of the show I've created in my head, it makes sense for a show where you get to follow the girls on a journey of becoming much better idols who are following their dreams and going further every day in that pursuit. Instead of our end is my beginning, the memories of you and I are gray, traces left behind after our love has departed, we have lyrics like don't stop, go past the limit, look at the changed me, I can't even catch my own heart, it's a new me, hotter than the sun, look at me shining on you. Maybe it's just me, but I find the lyrics much more suitable. So just repeat the entirety of the signal song test, but insert Catch Me If You Can instead. So then we have the seesaw test, which I just dislike fundamentally. The idea that an entire team of 6 can get carried by 1 or 2 people or fall because of 1 or 2 people, not my vibe. Also not a fan of the songs chosen. Kind of an inaccurate statement. Big fan of all the songs, not a fan of them in this test. But I get why they chose them. Island got the 2 companies' representative groups, Ground got 2 top girl groups who are the representative group's biggest competition, but we could have chosen better songs. Now, given what we know about the Black Maid test, we know they'll lean towards house, electropop, EDM, and easy listening. Taking easy listening out of the equation for now, I think we have better candidates for test songs among these groups' title tracks that A, that hasn't used before in a girl group survival show, and B, hasn't been used in a recent girl group survival show. Instead of Panorama, I think Secret Story of the Swan would be a much better showcase for the girls. The vocals aren't as insanely high, but the concept is pretty similar to Panorama. It has a strong dance break and strong chorus to highlight performance capabilities. Instead of Whistle, I would go with Kill This Love. It has a lot of similar elements to Swan, particularly the horns, but the concept is completely different. Instead of Bad Boy, I would go for Simsalabim. We get to stay in the range of darker concepts while still keeping things fun, and I think the song has a much better range for the contestants. As for like Ooh-Ah, we're changing that to I Can't Stop Me. It has vocal highlight moments, but for the most part, the vocals are much more suited to the contestants. But as As you may know, this was one of the questions I posed in the survey I made, and most answers did align with what I was going with originally, which was honestly surprising. Then, as more people answered, things shifted a bit. I'm a woman of the people, so I will follow your lead, but with some caveats. There's not a remarkable difference between Kill This Love and As If It's Your Last, although the latter is in the lead. I'm going to keep Kill This Love because despite a lot of people complaining about an IWALY song even being on the original show, Secret Story of the Swan was the overwhelming winner for Panorama's replacement. I just think Kill This Love is a better comparison to Secret Story of the Swan. Then for the grounders, most people agreed on I Can't Stop Me, but both Alcohol Free and Kiss of Life's Bad News put up a good fight. I was actually surprised so many people wanted Bad News, but I like that you saw the vision. Finally, while Simsalabim was in the lead for a while, Kepler's Giddy suddenly shot ahead, and I get it. A lot of people wanted Kepler to be included in the show the way IWALY was, and it's a very manageable song for the grounders. As for the secondary options for IWALY and Blackpink, not a lot of people were on board for As You Wish by Uji Sonyo and Windflower by Mamamoo respectively, but I chose these because I thought they suited Panorama and Whistle in vibes. So that means the Seesaw game options are Secret Story of the Swan and Kill This Love for Islanders, and I Can't Stop Me and Giddy for grounders. Let's see how that goes, shall we? Firstly, we're not going to one-on-one the teams. Different people suit different songs, and I don't like the concept of them splitting into pairs that then had to choose different teams. It just felt unnecessary. While I enjoyed getting to see the girls have fun and the pairings were all pretty cute, I wouldn't keep that if it meant we had to keep the team split. Instead, I think this is a very critical moment for the girls to show what they're confident in and show the best version of themselves. In Secret Story of the Swan, we will have Yoo Sarang as the main vocal, Son Ji-won as the main dancer, Jung Se-bi as the center, Kim Min-sol in vocal 1, Chae-sol in vocal 2, and Mai in vocal 3. Based off of what we know of them at that point in time, I divided their lines first, then assigned roles based on that distribution. I would still split their evaluation into vocal stands and stage presence, so those will be on screen. In my opinion, Mnet needs to take advantage of the connections they have and get Jo Yuri to show up as a special mentor here. It's a good way to get viral moments and bring attention to the show, and she is a Wake One artist. Yoo Sarang is not very confident in her vocals. This was shown throughout. Despite the fact that she is a fairly good vocalist with a good understanding of technique, she has some stage fright issues to work through, so I think her lack of confidence there would drag down her overall performance. Although not faced with the same high note issue as in the original show, I think her overall vocal performance would be fine, but falter around the bridge high note due to lack of breath support. I think this would be an overall score of 84 and a B rank. Son Ji-won would, in my opinion, work in a bit of a redemption here. Being part of the Avengers team last round, I think would have left her as one of the weakest in the performance, but getting a chance for a dance break in this round would probably leave a similar impact as it did in Panorama. I also think the vocals would be much more in her range here, but she's still not the strongest vocalist, although she shows potential. I think we would get an overall score of 87, highest in the team, and a B+ rank. Jung Se-bi is a difficult one. While I think stage presence would take her pretty far, she is still very lacking as a vocalist, and her dancing could still use some work. Due to the nature of the song, I think we would hear some strain and definitely some breath support issues, which would drag down her vocal score. I will be uploading line distribution videos except for JYP and HYBE songs, as those companies are run by Zionists and I am boycotting them. So if you want to understand why I say that, you should be able to find the playlist in the upper right hand corner or linked in the description. I think she would have an overall score of 84 and a B rank, like Sarang. Kim Min-sol is tasked with the third most challenging vocal position, and I think she would deliver there for the most part. Maybe some unstable notes and heavy breaths of air at the end of some lines, but overall, no voice cracks or egregious mistakes. But her dancing would be a problem that she can't hide as easily behind more lacking contestants. I think that, paired with a weak stage presence, would be what drags her score down. All that would culminate in the lowest score in the team with an 80 average and a B- rank. Chae-sol would probably be one of the more shocking successes of this team. I think she would showcase fairly strong vocals, and she does get some killing parts to highlight her stage presence. That, plus a place in the dance break, makes me think we're going to see a lot more of her strengths than weaknesses, and that is going to pull her up to the second highest score of the team, an average score of 85 and a B rank. Mai's vocals would mostly be judged on ad-libs, but she does get a line early on that I think would showcase her pretty well, as her lower register is a lot nicer than her upper. However, there are going to be moments that test her breath regulation, which should still be pretty underdeveloped at this point, despite the intense training we're starting out with. So I think this would be a much better than expected vocal performance, and controversially, I think it's actually going to be her dancing that drags her down. I noticed while rewatching fan cams that her dancing was really unrefined during I Will Always Love You, and as much as I think the training would help, I think she would be in the dance break with Ju-won and her weaknesses would be on display there. I think it would be an average score of 81 and a B- rank. In Kill This Love, we then have Choi Jung-un as the main vocal, Kim Soo-jung as the main dancer, Bang Ji-min as the center, Yui as the main rapper, Nam Yoo-ju as rap 1, and Coco as rap 2. Jung-un, Soo-jung, and Ji-min will all serve more as vocalists, and the other three will have their rap evaluated in the vocals category. Seeing as Rosie signed with the Black label and even sang the Signal song, I think it's more than appropriate that she shows up here. Choi Jung-un would bring back some of her reluctance to be a main vocalist here, I think. While I don't think she will do a bad job, I think she would have wanted the center role like she had in the comeback test, but be forced into the main vocal. She has to pretty much exclusively sing in belts for this song, and I think that would end up with some strain because, as I mentioned, she tends to sing from her throat, and this would be a song where it's likely she would fall back on that despite learning better techniques because it's so demanding for her vocally. This vocal challenge would probably drag down her stage presence somewhat, but this concept is still her element. Her dancing would be among the best in most teams, but here it's around the middle, fitting for an average score of 85 and a B rank. Kim Soo-jung as our main dancer won't have as many demanding vocal parts, and the parts she does get would be uniquely suited to her voice. That is why I think she would finally get the vocal acknowledgement she was seeking and get the best vocal score of the team. That plus an impressive dance break means she's all set for the highest score of the team of an 89 average and a B+ rank. 1 point from the coveted 90 for debut. Bang Ji-min as the center would have some issues, I think. We would probably still be seeing a pretty unconfident Ji-min, which would affect her stage presence. Her dancing foundation is good enough that she would be able to keep up but not stand out. Her vocal lines aren't too demanding, but Ji-min's vocals themselves are just so underdeveloped and she's not as confident on stage as she used to be. This all culminates in her having the lowest average score so far of a 79 and a C+ rank. Yui as our main rapper. Maybe some people will be upset, but she did win this position in the actual show and she did deliver, and I have full confidence she would do that again here. She's a good performer with good flow, and even if it takes her a minute to get the words down, that has to do with the language barrier and not her skills. I think we would see a vast improvement from the interim to the final stage, giving her a score of 84 and a solid B rank. In rap 1 we have Nam Yoo-ju. This time she actually gets lines even if she doesn't get the main rapper part. While I do think some of her weaknesses would still be on display, like her lack of projection, I do think we would see a much stronger performance from her. What drags her down, but not by a lot, is her stage presence, which at this point in the actual show tended to be overwhelmed by someone else on stage. This gives her a score of 80 and a B- rank. Finally, we have Coco, forced into the smallest rap position because she didn't win the main dancer. However, this is a moment for her to surprise us and establish herself earlier in the show. It is my genuine belief that had she not gotten that heavy edit during I Will Always Love You, she wouldn't have passed the elimination vote despite becoming a part of most people's top 6/7 early in part 2. Despite having a small part, I think her charisma would pull her up to an average score of 87 and a B+ rank. This team was originally constructed to be in Simsalabim, but I think it works pretty well for Giri as well. We have Yoon Ji-yoon as the main vocal, Kim Chaeyeon as the main dancer, Kim Gyuri as the center, Nana as the main rapper, Kang Ji-won as vocal 1, and Yuiko as vocal 2. The song isn't vocally demanding, which I think would pull up their score, and I think we would see a better side of Ji-yoon here, which would heavily influence the perception of this team. However, I think she would still not be as confident in herself until they get special mentors Xiaoting and Chaeyeon to help them. But Mnet is Mnet, and if they want to evil edit you, they will. Yoon Ji-yoon again is our main vocal, but controversially, I think it will be her stage presence doing more to raise her score because this isn't a cute concept or anything adjacent. The main vocal parts here are way less demanding than like Ua, allowing her vocal tone to be on display, and I think her redemption arc would actually start here. Not really blowing everyone out of the water, but definitely good enough for the team's second highest score of 83 and a B- rank. Kim Chaeyeon takes on the main dancer position because I think the boot camp we started with would do a lot to help her transition more into idol dancing, and I also think she would kind of be forced into it. Getting some one-on-one guidance from Xiaoting would also be a huge help for her since Xiaoting is a trained ballroom dancer and that shares some disciplines with ballet that could help Chaeyeon. I don't think her vocals would really be all that, and her stage presence would still need some work, but I do think this would be a performance that impresses the producers with her improvement leading to a score of 78 and a C+. We have Kim Gyuri as the center, and I think she would be a standout again. I think the vocals would carry her score because she can show a variety of vocal skills. She'll also get spotlight moments in the choreo, which will showcase more of her well-rounded skill set, and the concept is really up her alley, which I think will lead to a fairly high level of stage presence. All this means Gyuri has our highest score of the team with an 85 and a B. Nana as our main rapper doesn't have a really heavy burden, but that doesn't mean she doesn't have something to prove. And I, unfortunately, think the task will be a little too much for her. I can see her improving her dance and vocal skills and stage presence, but start stumbling over her words, which will negatively affect all of those. so she gets a score of 76 and a C. Kang Ji-won gets a smaller role, but her biggest problem throughout the show has always been her confidence. Any vocal and dance coach will tell you that the biggest obstacle to improving and doing well is confidence. You have to believe you can pull it off first, and Kang Ji-won showed again and again that she doesn't believe she can. All this has me thinking her stage presence score will drag her down to a 75 and a C. Not too far from Nana, but clearly not debut level. Finally, we have Yuiko in vocal 2. I think she would showcase the best vocals after Gyuri and Jiyoon, and that would help pull up her score. She's not an untalented or unskilled person, but I think she and Kang Ji-won both suffer from a lack of confidence. Her dance score would be the main factor dragging her down to another 75 and a C score. The final performance of this mission is then I Can't Stop Me. We have Ji-won as our main vocal, Oh Yoona as the main dancer, Fuko as the center, Kim Eun-chae as the main rapper, Ling Ling as vocal 1, and Park Yeon as vocal 2. This would be a good place to tell you that although I dislike the format of one whole team going up and one going down, no matter how the individuals did, I couldn't figure out a better way to somewhat stay true to how the show played out with regards to keeping Jongin and Jiyoon from being on the same team just yet. As our main vocal, I don't think it would be Jiwon's vocals that pull her score up. She's a much better dancer despite being a fine vocalist, but what I will give her is that she doesn't lack confidence, which is the one factor I could see pulling up her vocal score. She wouldn't be afraid to really go for it in the final chorus ad-libs, and I think that would have the biggest payoff to raise her vocal score, giving her a final score of 86 and a B rank. Oh Yoona as the main dancer isn't given the impossible task of singing while her head is swinging up and down or singing out of her range here, so I think she would avoid the previous displays of voice cracks. Even still, she's far from the best vocalist on the show, but her high dance score would even out her low vocal score. Adding in a high stage presence score, she also gets an 86 and a B. Fuko is the one to beat as this team center, and she doesn't disappoint, showcasing the best vocals out of the team, complete with carrying choruses and ad-libs, as well as a solid dance foundation and good stage presence. I would expect nothing less from the person who carried Bad Boy. All this culminates in the best score across both ground teams and the second highest overall in an 88 and a B+ rank. Kim Eun-chae as the main rapper leaves something to be desired. Although I believe the vocal/rap would be the strongest aspect of her performance, I think she wouldn't be able to keep up as well in dance and stage presence due to focusing on her delivery. All this leads to a final score of 74 and a C rank. On the other hand, Ling Ling as vocal 1 would probably have the most disappointing vocal performance overall in this mission. While I think she shows a lot of potential, her lower register is her most developed and definitely where she shines. Unfortunately, I Can't Stop Me is not very forgiving of that. Her dance skills would pull her up, but I think her less than stellar vocal moments would pull down her confidence and stage presence. She finishes with the lowest overall score of the night at a 73 and a C-. Park Yeon in vocal 2 doesn't offer much to set herself apart from Ling Ling, both of whom are benefiting from being in a really strong team. Her vocals are also underdeveloped and her dance skills could be better. However, she does have confidence and a good stage presence, and I think that would pull her score up to a 74 and a C rank. With that, we have the final scores. Secret Story of the Swan averages a score of 83 and a B- rank. On the other hand, Kill This Love just barely edges them out with a score of 84 and a B rank. Swan has a total score of 501, while Kill This Love pulls ahead with 504. This means Sarang, Juwon, Sebi, Minsol, Sol, and Mai all get sent to ground. As for ground, Giddy has an average score of 79 and a C+ rank, while I Can't Stop Me again barely outranks them with an 80 and a B- rank. Giddy has a total score of 473, while I Can't Stop Me totals 481. This means Jiwon, Yoona, Fuko, Eun-chae, Ling Ling, and Yeon go up to Island. Following the show's elimination format, Kang Jiwon and Yuiko have the lowest score in ground, with Minsol following closely behind, meaning Jiwon and Yuiko are eliminated. If we were to go with the form winner, we would have Jiyoon, Chaeyoon, Gyuri, Jiwon, Yoona, and Fuko going to Island, with Jimin, Mai, Minsol, Sarang, Sebi, and Yui going to ground. But like I said, we can't have Jiyoon and Jungin teaming up just yet, because as much as I think the drama was dragged out, you have to admit the two of them going head-to-head in vocals was one of the most interesting parts of Island 2. This means we're at the unit test, which I have made some changes to. We still have a 2-person vocal unit with Island doing fine and Ground doing eyes, nose, lips, but we split the rest into a rap team and a dance team. You may be asking yourself, why would we have more people in rap teams than a vocal team when very few girls showed potential as rappers? Because I would argue they show more potential as lead rappers than as sub-vocals in most cases. Not all, but I also thought it could end up being a much better showcase of them as performers, like how Manami completely endeared herself to Girls Planet viewers when she unexpectedly stole the show during We Are. It doesn't mean they have to be rappers in the end, but it also showcases versatility, adaptability, and if you already have strong vocal and dance candidates who are pretty much guaranteed those roles in the final group, why not have them compete for an open space as an adaptable all-rounder even if they aren't one now? All that aside, we're sticking with Fuko and Jongin in the island unit doing fine. I think it would go pretty much the same way it did on the show. With a vocal and stage presence category, I do think their overall score drops and their individual scores change as well. Fuko receives a 91 for vocals and an 89 for stage presence for a final score of 90 and an A- rank. Jongin, on the other hand, 88 for vocals, 88 for stage presence, 88 total, and a B+ rank. Average score for the team is an 89 and a B+. Then for ground, we have Jiyoon and Gyuri performing Eyes No Slips the way it was always meant to be. I do think this would leave Jiyoon with a slightly lower score as Gyuri has a stronger voice than Minsol, so she wouldn't completely overtake the performance. Jiyoon gets a 93 for vocals, 91 for stage presence, and a final score of 91 and an A- rank. Gyuri improves on Minsol's score with an 87 for vocals, 89 for stage presence, finishing with the same total score as Jongin of an 88 and B+ rank. This means ground again wins by 1 point, reaching a total average of 90 against Island's 89. As for the dance units, Island has 5 people while ground still has only 3 due to the eliminations. While both teams would be tasked with coming up with their own choreo, it would only be for the second part of their performances. Island keeps 2 of the original songs, Eve Psyche and Sugarcoat, while ground gets 2 new songs, Feel My Rhythm and Chunga's Play, making the 2 performances very distinct while also highlighting the strengths of each team. Island team has Sujong as the leader and center, Jimin in part 1, Ji-won 2, Coco 3, remember she was very overlooked until next mission, and Oh Yoona in 4. They have a set choreo for Eve Psyche, but get to be creative for Sugarcoat. Sujong takes a dance score of 91 and a stage presence score of 87 for an 89 and B+ rank total. Jimin, still in her less than confident era, receives an 84 for dance, 86 for stage presence, an 85 and a B average. Ji-won gets an 85 all around for another B total. Coco impresses with her small part for a 93 dance score, 89 stage presence, 91 total, and an A- rank. This puts her in the lead for Island. Oh Yoona then manages an 87 dance score, 83 stage presence, and a final 85 and B rank. Ground then gets a bit unexpected with Kim Chaeyeon in the center role and probably leader as well due to her background lending itself well to Feel My Rhythm. Unfortunately, play is where they get to flex their creativity, and I expect Sebi to be more prominent in that section. They were also joined by Minsol, who should have gone for the dance team the whole time. I would expect Chaeyeon to impress the judges and get an 88 for dance, 86 for stage presence, total score of 87 and a B+. Sebi would probably pale a bit in comparison, receiving 80 dance score and 88 stage presence for an 84 average. Minsol then pulls an 86 all around, a B score. This means Island pulls through for the win with an 87 average against a rounded up 86 for ground. Finally, the rap teams consist of 5 members each. Island gets to put their own spin on Blackpink's Pretty Savage, while ground are tasked with the same for Idol's My Bag, which we're repurposing from the dance challenge. Both teams need to come up with their own verses and performances. Doesn't have to be choreo, but just an overall performance that suits the song. In Island, we have Yuju as the main rapper and Yui as part 1. I think it would stack that way, as Yuju is fluent in Korean. Yeon, Lingling, and Inche follow in that order. Yuju, I would expect to get an 89 rap score and 86 for performance and stage presence. Her final score is an 87 and B+ rank. Yui isn't far ahead with an 88 rap score, 86 performance, and 90 for stage presence, pulling her up to an 88 average and B+ rank. After that, we have Yeon with 75 for rap, 76 for performance, 83 for stage presence, and a final score of 78 for a C+. Lingling impresses with a 78 rap score, 83 performance, and 79 stage presence for a final score of 80 and a B-. Eunche then has a 75 for rap, 76 for performance, and 80 for stage presence. Her final score is a 77 and a C+ rank. She has the worst score in Island. For ground, the main rapper role goes to Sarang. Jiwon and Nana then get parts 1 and 2, while Mai and Sol get 3 and 4. I think the expectations would be lower for this team, but I also think it's likely they would showcase a better overall performance on and off stage, as none of them have a lot of experience and confidence as rappers, so I could see them becoming like the Island creative unit of this version of events. Sarang I could see pulling off an 83 for rap, 89 for performance, and 89 for stage presence, totaling an 87 and a B+ score. Jiwon with with an 84 rap score, 88 performance, and 86 stage presence averages an 86 and a B score. Nana then fails to impress with a 73 for rap, 78 for performance, and an 80 for stage presence. Mai would then get a 75 for her rap, 79 for performance, and an 86 for stage presence for an 80 total and a B- score. Finally, Seoul would build on what we saw potential for in Cake and net an 85 for rap, 86 for performance, 84 for stage presence, and an average of 85 for a B rank. This means Ground just barely take the win with an 83 average score against Island's 82. So that means Ground gets 2 wins and 6 of their best exchange places with 6 of Island's worst. This means Jiwoon and Gyuri, Jaehyun and Minseo, and Sarang and Jiwon go up to Island, while Jimin, Jiwon, and Yuna, Yeon, Lingling, and Eunchae get demoted to Ground. Eunchae and Nana receive the lowest overall scores, and so they are eliminated before the final round of Part 1, I Will Always Love You. This means we end up with the same eliminations as the actual show, but the placement of Islanders and Grounders is not the same. So what does that mean? We all remember that the show had the Islanders pick positions by overall ranks, but I decided to keep things simple. Everybody gets as close to their original part as we can get them. That means Team A has Soojung as their main vocal, Jiwon as the main dancer, Fuko as the center, Gyuri in Part 4, Jungin in Part 5, and Yuju in Part 6. In Team B, there's Jiyoon as main vocal, Coco as main dancer, Yui as center, Sarang as Part 4, Minseo in Part 5, and Chaein in Part 6. I think Soojung's vocal score would really drag her down at a 65 against her 92 dance score, but her confidence would be affected by her vocals and land her stage presence at 77 for a 78 final score. On the other hand, Jiyoon's vocals would net a 96 against an 84 dance score and 87 stage presence for an 89 total. Expectedly, Jiyoon gets the straight pass to Part 2. Jiwon's vocals would net her a 78 against an 88 dance score and an 86 for stage presence, averaging an 84 overall. Coco's vocals aren't that strong either, so she gets a 77 there, but her dance raises her mean with an 84 and a 90 for stage presence. Her average is an 87, so Coco receives the straight pass to Part 2. Fuko impresses with her vocals, receiving an 89, but her dance score of 84 and stage presence score of 82 drags her down to an 84 total. Meanwhile, Yui nets an 82 for vocals, 89 for dance, and an 86 for stage presence, barely edging Fuko out with an 86 total, receiving the straight pass to Part 2. Gyuri pulls an impressive 87 for her vocals, but her 83 for dance and 82 for stage presence pull her final score down to an 84. Against Sarang's 84 for vocals, 88 for dance, and 83 for stage presence, the race is close as Sarang averages an 85 and receives the straight pass to Part 2. As with the original, I think Jungwon's lack of emoting would pull down her vocal score to an 83, but her 88 for dance and 81 for stage presence would average out to an 84. Minseo then receives a 79 for her own vocals, 82 for dance, 82 for stage presence, and an 81 average. Jungwon thus receives the straight pass to Part 2. Finally, Yuju and Chaehyun face off in Part 6. Yuju nets an 86 for her small vocal part, 80 for her dance, and an 83 for her stage presence, averaging an 83. Meanwhile, Chaehyun gets a 72 for her vocals, 79 for her dance, and an 83 for her stage presence. That means her average is a 78, and Yuju receives the straight pass to Part 2. As for Ground, we see Jiwon step up as the main vocal, with Oh Yuna as the main dancer, and Bang Jimin as the center. Yeon then follows as Part 4 with Lingling in Part 5, Mai in Part 6, Sebi in Part 7, and Cheosol keeping her Part 8 as originally. I would expect Jimin and Fuko to take first and second in the save vote respectively. Sebi would then be third with Soojung in 4th place. Jiwon takes 5th, Gyuri 6th place, and I expect Mai would just barely lose out on Part 2 if this is the voting pool. This means Mai, Minseo, Chaehyun, Jiwon, Yuna, Yeon, Lingling, and Seoul have all been eliminated by the vote. Originally this was supposed to be just one big video, but as you can see, we went a little too big. So this is now part 1 of the Island 2 reimagining. I've also been so sick and busy. I lost my voice for a whole week. I went to Stockholm to take a test in London to see Artemis and Eve, got food poisoning, worked for 9 to 12 hours a day during the entirety of Black Friday week, and I'm finishing this video on Christmas Day. Since this is the season of giving, whether you celebrate Christmas or Eid or Hanukkah or anything else, and even nothing at all, I wanted to encourage you guys to give to a good cause. I know, since I'm putting this at the very end of the video, there won't be that many people watching this section of the video, but in the description you can find several charitable causes that you can lend a helping hand to. I want to particularly highlight Mayad, who is an XOL in Gaza who's been fundraising for almost a year now and still hasn't reached her goal. Because I don't just expect my viewers to do something I myself wouldn't, I will be adding all proceeds from this video to my regular donation to Mayad. And if this video gets demonetized like most of my Island 2 videos, I will donate $1 for every like. With that, I will see you guys in part 2. Happy holidays, happy new year, and may 2025 see an end to the genocides and famines around the world.